Kasim wanted to shame his ex-wife. He planned a huge wedding and thought she would arrive sad, broken, and small. He expected people to laugh at her. But when Zara stepped from a shining black Rolls-Royce holding the hands of 3 little boys, the whole hall froze. The woman he once called cursed was not broken, she was a mother. That was only the beginning. Once upon a time in the busy city of Arayuku, there lived a man named Kasim. He was in his early 30s and everyone knew him as a man who loved money, cars, and power. Kasim dressed in fine suits, drove the newest cars, and walked with his chin high as if the ground beneath him owed him respect. He liked loud laughter, public praise, and being first in every room. Zara was the opposite. Quiet and gentle, she moved like someone who kept her heart in a small, careful place. She had smooth brown skin and eyes that often seemed tired from holding secrets. Zara married Kasim because she loved him. For 7 years she baked his bread, straightened his ties, and prayed for the child they wanted together. Each month she hoped, each month she was hurt. The doctors at the small clinic in town were kind to her, but nothing changed. The empty months piled up like soft, painful stones in her chest. One evening everything finally broke. The house that had once held laughter was heavy and quiet. Kasim came into the bedroom with the look of a man who had swallowed ash. He threw his keys down hard and shouted words that cut deep. 7 years, he said. 7 years and still no child. What do you want me to be? A man with no son? My mother calls, my friends laugh. You have made me a fool. Zara stood on the edge of their bed, hands clasped, voice small. Kasim, we tried. I have prayed. Maybe another doctor, she began. Enough of your prayers, Kasim snapped. I am tired of hope. I need a wife who can give me children. Not a house that looks nice and a woman who fills it with silence. He called her names in front of the house help. He spoke words that dropped like stones, you are a curse. Zara's lips trembled. She begged him not to throw her away. She reminded him of the vows they had made. She told him that she loved him more than anything. Kasim did not soften. He picked up his phone and made a call right there, his voice flat. Prepare the papers. I want a divorce first thing tomorrow. Zara packed a small bag that very night. As she folded dresses and memories into it, each dress felt heavier with moments she would never get back, birthdays, quiet dinners, mornings when he had been kind. She left the house quietly, stepping out into the dark with nothing but a small bag and a promise to herself, I will not remain broken. She found shelter with Ruth, a friend from university who lived in a small marker's flat near the market. Ruth welcomed Zara with open arms and warm food. The marker's house was nothing like Kasim's mansion. But Ruth's door was open, and that felt like the first kindness Zara had known in years. Days passed in a blur. Zara could not sleep well. She ate little. The women at the market whispered about the dramatic divorce, and the gossip stung because some believed Kasim's words without asking why. Ruth listened and raged when she had to. That man has no fear of God, she said one night. You deserve more than his lies. Then Ruth asked a question that changed everything. Zara, did you ever get a full medical checkup? Did you test to be sure the problem wasn't his? Zara shook her head. Kasim had always refused testing. He had found it easier to point a finger than to look at himself. So the two women went to a small private clinic in town. Dr. Olam, a quiet man with patient eyes, welcomed them. He listened carefully, ran tests, and told them to wait. 2 days later, Dr. Olam smiled in a way that felt like sunrise. Everything looks fine, he said. You are healthy. Your hormones and scans show nothing wrong. You are not the one with the problem. Zara's knees felt weak as the truth settled into her like hot water. After years of shame and tears, she learned she had been blamed for a pain that wasn't hers. She had been called worthless, cursed, barren, all lies wrapped in someone else's cowardice. For the first time since Kasim's home, a small light returned to her chest. That truth did not fix everything. It did not take the 7 stolen years back. It did not bring back the night she cried until her pillow was soaked. But it taught her something deeper: she had not been the problem. And because of that, she began to stand straight again. Ruth pushed her to do more than sit and mourn. "You are not made for that," Ruth said. "We will start again." With little money and a strong will, Zara and Ruth turned a small corner of the community square into a food stall. The smell of jollof rice and spicy stew soon became their small miracle. Every morning Zara woke before dawn and cooked. Word spread: Zara's jollof tasted like a warm hand on a hard day. The work was honest and heavy, but it gave her a rhythm. Customers came: market men, students, office workers. They lined up for a plate and left with a smile. Zara's life was no longer empty, it was filled with the ordinary nobility of work. She learned to laugh again. She learned to make plans. She planted small seeds of hope. One bright morning a man in a white shirt and neat trousers stood at her stall. He ordered 2 plates and looked at her with kind eyes. He was Daniel, a gentleman who worked at the firm down the road. He had a calm voice and a shy smile. He told a small joke, then another, and soon he was back again the next day, and the next. Daniel never dominated the conversation. He asked about the food. He brought an onion or 2 as a small gift. He listened when Zara spoke. He did not ask about Kasim. He did not judge. Slowly, with small, careful steps, Zara let him sit and share a cup of tea between customers. He told quiet stories about his late wife and about how he missed laughter in his home. Zara found his presence like cool water, not a flood, just steady relief. That afternoon, as the sun lowered and the city began to glow with evening lights, Zara handed Daniel his plate. His eyes met hers and something soft passed between them, not a promise, but the simple warmth of being seen. When he left, he waved a little, and Zara felt a small flutter in her chest. For the first time in a long while, she slept without the heavy pull of shame. But life does not change with one plate of food or one kind smile. The world around them still spun with gossip and pride. Kasim, loud with money and rage, still thought he could show the world he had won. Yet 8 months had begun to shape a different life for Zara, one built with her own hands, with honest food, and the quiet support of a new friend. It was small, and it was steady. It was, perhaps, the start of something that would one day make Kasim see the cost of his pride. Months passed. The smell of Zara's jollof rice became a part of the morning air in the busy city of Aryuku. Her food stand grew famous. People came not just for the food, but for her calm smile and gentle voice. The woman who once walked alone under the streetlights now had customers calling her Madame Zara with respect. Daniel kept coming too. Sometimes he came early before work to help her lift the heavy pots. Sometimes he stayed late, sweeping the stand while she packed up. They talked about small things: the weather, music, dreams. He made her laugh. She made him remember what peace felt like. One evening, as the sun fell behind the buildings, Daniel said softly, "Zara, I know you've been hurt. I see it in your eyes. But I want you to know, not every man breaks what he loves." Zara looked away. Her voice was low. "I'm not ready for love." "I know," Daniel said with a gentle smile. "I can wait." His patience became part of her healing. Over time, their friendship grew roots, strong, quiet, unhurried. The beginning of joy. 2 years passed. Zara and Daniel got married in a small, beautiful ceremony under a mango tree behind Ruth's house. No crowd, no loud music, just laughter, prayers, and peace. Ruth cried the loudest, dancing barefoot in her wrapper. Their home was small but filled with warmth. Daniel opened a small accounting firm nearby while Zara's food business turned into a proper restaurant. They painted the sign together, "Zara's Kitchen, food made with peace." Each morning Daniel kissed her forehead and said, "My queen, don't burn the stew before I return." She would laugh and throw a kitchen cloth at him. Months turned into seasons, and life smiled on her again. Until one morning when she felt dizzy. Then came the nausea. At first, she thought it was malaria. But when it lasted 2 weeks, Daniel said, "We're going to the hospital." They waited anxiously in the small clinic. When the nurse returned, she wore a bright smile. "Congratulations, madam," she said. "You're pregnant." Zara froze. Tears spilled down her face before she could even speak. Daniel stood, speechless for a second, then shouted, "Pregnant? Are you sure?" The nurse laughed. "Very sure." Daniel lifted Zara off the chair and hugged her tightly. "You're going to be a mother," he whispered. "We're going to be parents." Zara wept with joy. The God she had begged for 7 years had answered in his own time. The miracle. The months of pregnancy were not easy, but Daniel was there through it all, cooking, cleaning, massaging her feet, and talking to her belly like the babies could already hear him. When she went for her 3rd scan, the doctor's eyes widened. "Madam Zara," he said, "you are carrying 3 babies." Zara sat up, shocked. 3? "Yes," the doctor smiled. "Triplets." Zara screamed, laughed, and cried all at once. The whole hospital staff came running to check what had happened. When they told Daniel, he knelt right there. In the waiting area, tears falling freely. "God, you've done too much," he whispered. 9 months later, on a calm Saturday morning, Zara gave birth to 3 healthy baby boys. Ruth was there, crying and praying. The nurses clapped. Daniel held one baby and said, "This one has my ears. I'm keeping him." Zara smiled weakly, her heart full. "You can keep them all. I just want to hold them forever." She looked down at the 3 tiny faces, breathing softly against her chest. Her tears fell, but they were tears of joy this time. Word of the miracle spread fast. People whispered in taxis, offices, and markets. "Did you hear?" they said. "The woman Kasim divorced has given birth to triplets." Triplets? That same Zara? Even some of Kasim's old friends heard. They didn't know whether to call him or hide from him. Kasim heard the news from a friend at a business meeting. He laughed at first, but his laughter sounded strange, dry and hollow. "That can't be true," he said. But later that night, he couldn't sleep. He searched her name online. And there it was. A photo, Zara holding 3 babies, her husband beside her, smiling proudly. The caption read, "After years of pain, Grace spoke." Kasim stared at the picture for a long time. His hands trembled. He zoomed in on the image, as if trying to deny what his eyes saw. The same woman he had thrown away now had what he claimed she never could. He tried to laugh again, but it broke halfway through. To silence the noise in his mind, Kasim began to live louder. He bought new cars, threw bigger parties, and started dating again. Then came Adora, a tall, beautiful fashion designer from Lagos, with a voice that could turn heads in any room. She loved attention, luxury, and being adored. She was everything Kasim thought he needed to erase the past. Within months, they were seen together everywhere, events, red carpets, and expensive restaurants. Adora's social media was filled with pictures of them smiling beside cars, champagne glasses shining between them. When she spoke, her words sparkled. When he stood beside her, he felt powerful again. "She's different," Kasim told his friends. "She understands success." Adora smiled when he said that, but her heart was already planning. One evening, while dining at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city, Adora leaned forward and said calmly, "Kasim, let's not waste time. If you want me, let's do it." He blinked. "Do what?" "Marriage," she said simply, sipping her wine. "You're not a boy. I'm not a girl. If we want each other, let's make it real." Kasim stared at her, caught between surprise and excitement. "You're ready?" She smiled. "I don't believe in long courtship. When something is good, you don't wait." That night, Kasim called his event planner. He wanted the wedding to be the biggest in the city: chandeliers, gold decor, Rolls-Royce, foreign musicians. He told his friend Safan, "I'll show the world that I've moved on." But deep inside, a quiet voice whispered, "You still want her to see." And so he wrote her name himself on the guest list. Zara Mensah, front row seat. Far away, in her peaceful home, Zara was feeding her triplets when Ruth rushed in, waving her phone. "Zara," she said. "You won't believe this." Zara looked up. "What is it?" Ruth handed her the phone. It was a wedding invitation, glittering, gold, and loud. The names were printed boldly. Qasim and Adora, the Royal Union. Zara read it silently. Her face was calm. Ruth frowned. "Are you serious? After everything he did, he dares send you this?" Zara smiled faintly, rocking one of her babies. "Let him do whatever he wants." Ruth crossed her arms. "You're not going, right?" Zara didn't answer. She looked at her sleeping children, then at the soft sunlight touching their faces. Her voice was gentle but firm. "Sometimes, the truth doesn't need to be spoken. It just needs to be seen." Ruth blinked. "Wait, are you thinking what I think you're thinking?" Zara's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "Yes. I will go." The morning of the wedding arrived like thunder over the city of Arayuku. Posters of Qasim and Adora, the Royal Union, were everywhere: gold letters, expensive fonts, smiles too perfect to be real. The news stations called it the event of the year. Luxury cars lined up outside the massive crystal hall by the waterfront. Red carpets. Camera flashes. Everyone who was anyone wanted to be seen there. Qasim stood in front of the mirror, dressed in a white agbada with gold embroidery. His shoes were polished like mirrors. His eyes, however, were restless. He told himself he was happy. He told himself this day was proof that he had won. But somewhere deep inside, a small ache kept whispering, "You still need her to see." He picked up his phone and looked again at the guest list. Zara Mensah, front row. He smiled coldly. She will see what she lost. At the hall. The wedding venue shimmered with wealth. Chandeliers hung like frozen rain. Each table glittered with gold plates and white roses. Photographers moved like bees, snapping every detail. The crowd was loud, laughing, admiring, gossiping. But Qasim's eyes kept flicking to the entrance. Adora, in her bridal suite, looked like a vision of wealth: long lace gown from Milan, diamonds in her hair, gold-tipped nails. But as she looked at herself in the mirror, her heart beat faster. It wasn't the excitement of a bride, it was fear. She remembered her doctor's words, her unanswered pregnancy tests, and Qasim's anger whenever she mentioned seeing a doctor together. Still, she took a deep breath and whispered, "I'm fine. It's my day." Outside, the music swelled. Guests began to stand. The ceremony was about to begin. And then, the sound of an engine. A black Rolls-Royce glided to a stop at the entrance of the hall. The crowd outside turned their heads. Phones lifted into the air. The car door opened slowly. And Zara stepped out. She wore a long flowing yellow gown that caught the morning light like gold. Her hair was wrapped neatly, her earrings small and elegant. On each side of her stood her sons, 3 little boys in matching white shirts and yellow shorts, bow ties bright as morning. They held her hands as she walked. Their steps small but proud. The murmurs began before she even entered the hall. "Is that her? It can't be. Wait, she has children?" Inside, Qasim froze. His throat went dry. He blinked, but the sight before him didn't disappear. Zara. Alive. Glowing. Whole. With triplets. He had imagined her coming broken, maybe even weeping. But she walked like a queen. The hall falls silent. Zara walked slowly down the aisle, not toward the altar, but to her seat, the one Qasim himself had reserved for her. She moved gracefully, holding her son's hands. The hall, once loud with laughter, became so silent that even the soft squeak of her heels echoed. Every camera turned. Every whisper died. Adora, still behind the doors waiting for her cue, heard the silence and frowned. "What's happening?" she asked her maid. "Someone important arrived," the maid whispered. When Adora finally walked in, the room still hadn't recovered. She noticed everyone's eyes weren't on her. They were looking somewhere else, at a woman in a yellow gown sitting proudly with 3 children on her lap. She turned to Qasim. His face was pale. His eyes were locked on Zara. The collapse of pride. Adora whispered sharply, "Who is that?" Qasim swallowed. "That's Zara." Her brows drew together. "Your ex-wife?" He nodded slowly. She looked at the boys beside her. "And those children?" Qasim said nothing. He couldn't. His mouth was dry, his heart racing. The truth hit him like a storm. Adora turned fully toward him, her voice trembling with anger. "You told me she was barren." People nearby turned to listen. Zara sat still, calm as sunlight. Qasim shook his head weakly. "I thought." "You thought?" Adora's voice rose. "You lied. You ruined her name, told everyone she was cursed, and now she walks in with triplets?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. The pastor at the altar tried to speak. "Please, let's remain calm." But Adora wasn't calm. She turned to the audience, her voice clear. "This man built his pride on a lie. He shamed a woman for something that wasn't her fault." All eyes turned to Qasim. His chest tightened. He tried to reach for Adora's hand, but she stepped back. "I can't marry you," she said. "Not after this. Not ever." The bouquet dropped from her fingers and hit the floor with a soft thud. The cameras kept flashing, recording everything. The wedding hall that was supposed to be a symbol of triumph now stood frozen in shame. The walk of grace. Zara stood. Her children looked up at her. "Mommy, can we go now?" one of them whispered. "Yes," she said softly. She took their hands and began to walk out, steady, graceful, and calm. No anger. No revenge. Just quiet dignity. As she passed Qasim, their eyes met. For a heartbeat, he saw the truth, not in her words, but in her peace. He lowered his head, tears filling his eyes. Zara walked through the doors, sunlight wrapping her like gold. Outside, the car waited. Ruth stood nearby, smiling proudly. Zara opened the door, helped her sons in, and took one last look at the hall. She whispered, "I didn't come to destroy. I came to be seen." Then she got into the car, and the Rolls-Royce drove away. The aftermath. Inside the hall, the music had stopped. Guests whispered in low tones. Some looked at Qasim with pity. Others shook their heads. The man who once laughed the loudest now stood alone, trembling beside the altar. His friend Safan approached quietly. "Qasim," he said. But Qasim didn't answer. He just stared at the empty doorway. He finally whispered, "She came with triplets." Safan sighed. And the truth. The cameras were still rolling. Within hours, the videos hit the internet. The bride who walked out. Ex-wife arrives with triplets. The groom's secret exposed. The man who once built his image on pride now became the face of disgrace. Later that night, Zara sat at home in her living room, rocking her babies to sleep. Ruth scrolled through her phone, reading comments out loud. "Listen to this," she said, laughing. "They're calling you the woman who silenced pride." Zara smiled faintly. "Let them say what they want. I didn't do it for the world." "Then why?" Ruth asked. "To remind myself," Zara said quietly, "that I was never the problem." Her babies stirred, and she kissed their foreheads. Daniel came home from a trip that night. He hugged her from behind, whispering, "I saw the videos. You walked in like a lioness. Zara laughed softly. It wasn't easy. I'm proud of you, he said. You didn't just win, you healed. And as the night wrapped around their little home, Zara finally closed her eyes with peace in her heart. The morning after the ruined wedding, the city of Arayuku buzzed with one story only. The groom's lie exposed. Every gossip blog, every radio host, every WhatsApp group, all talking about one thing. The woman Qasim threw away had triplets. Screens flashed with Zara's calm walk out of the hall. Clips replayed again and again. Her golden gown swaying, her quiet smile, her sons holding her hands. People called her the woman who silenced pride. But while the world watched and laughed, Qasim sat alone in his mansion, the same mansion that once echoed with laughter and music, now silent as a graveyard. The golden curtains looked dull, the chandeliers dusty, the echo of the wedding music haunting him. His phone kept buzzing. He didn't answer. Every headline stabbed like a knife. Ex-wife of business mogul shocks wedding guests. Triplets? The truth finally exposed. The proud man and his downfall. He stared at his reflection in the mirror. The same mirror he used to admire himself in, now it showed a stranger. His agbada was crumpled, the embroidery dull. His face looked older. His eyes, empty. For years, he had thought pride made him powerful. Now it made him small. That evening, when the sun was low and the city lights began to glow, Zara heard a knock at her door. Ruth opened it, and froze. Qasim, she whispered. He stood there, looking nothing like the man from the wedding. His white shirt was wrinkled, his eyes red, his voice quiet. He held his cap in both hands, like a student caught in shame. Zara, he said softly. Zara turned from the kitchen, carrying one of the babies. For a long time, she said nothing. He looked around the small, peaceful home, the toys on the floor, the sound of laughter, the smell of stew. It felt like a different world. A world he once destroyed. I'm not here to disturb your peace, he said quietly. I just came to say something. Zara nodded, still silent. Her eyes were calm, unreadable. I ruined everything, Qasim continued. I judged you. I shamed you. I threw you out because I believed a lie, my own lie. He took a shaky breath. I told everyone you were barren. I said you were cursed. But I was wrong. Zara's voice was gentle, steady. You weren't just wrong, Qasim. You were cruel. He swallowed hard. I know. I didn't get tested. I didn't listen. I only wanted to protect my pride. He fell to his knees. Tears rolled down his face. I'm sorry, Zara. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I needed to say it. You were the only woman who truly loved me. Zara looked at him for a long moment. She didn't see the man who once threw her away. She saw a broken man learning what it meant to be human. She finally said, "Stand up." He rose slowly, avoiding her eyes. I forgave you long before today, Zara said softly. He blinked, shocked. You did? Yes, she said. Because hate is heavy, and I decided to travel light. Qasim covered his face, weeping quietly. Zara looked at him kindly. You should get tested, she added. Not for me, but for yourself. He nodded quickly. I already did. Her brows lifted slightly. And? Qasim sighed. The doctor said it. Low sperm count. From an infection I ignored years ago. Zara was silent. Then she whispered, so it was never me. He nodded, ashamed. It was always me. There was no anger in her face, only peace. She gently said, now you know the truth. Let it make you better, not bitter. He nodded, wiped his face, and turned toward the door. Before leaving, he looked back once more. You found peace, he said. You became everything I wasn't. Zara smiled faintly. Peace came when I stopped fighting to be seen by the wrong eyes. Days later, Qasim's downfall deepened. His investors began to withdraw. His business partners refused his calls. Contracts he had boasted about were cancelled quietly. The news called it a reputation collapse. But he called it what it was, justice. One afternoon, his mother, Mama Ij, came to his office. Her face was tired, her voice soft. "Qasim," she said, "we were both wrong." He nodded slowly. "You told me to send her away, Mama. You said she was cursed." Tears filled her old eyes. "I know. And I'll never forgive myself for that. I should have told you to be patient. That girl loved you more than her own breath." Qasim lowered his head. "Now she's happy," he whispered. "And I am alone." Mama Ij reached for his hand. "Then learn from it. God still sees the heart that repents." He said nothing, just stared out the window, the same window he once used to admire his cars and his wealth. Now, all he saw was emptiness. Meanwhile, Zara's life was full of laughter again. Her food business had grown into a small restaurant. Ruth helped her manage customers. Daniel expanded it with new ideas, delivery, catering, a second branch. Their home smelled of peace. Every morning, Daniel kissed her forehead before work and whispered, "I love you, my queen." Her sons grew quickly, playful, curious, bright. Each had a smile that reminded her of the grace she had found in pain. One afternoon, she received a letter, cream-colored, folded neatly. It had only 2 lines. "Thank you for your strength. You taught me a lesson I will never forget. Qasim." She read it twice, smiled softly, and placed it in her drawer. Not out of pride, but closure. That evening, the family gathered around the dinner table. Daniel repaired a toy car for one of the boys while Zara served soup. Ruth laughed loudly at something one of the kids said. Zara looked around her small dining room, the clatter of spoons, the chatter, the warmth. For years, she had dreamed of this, not wealth, not power, but peace. Her middle child tugged her sleeve. "Mommy," he asked, "when we grow up, will we be famous like you?" She laughed softly. "Who said I'm famous?" "Everyone on the internet was talking about you," he said proudly. Zara smiled. "Maybe one day you'll know the story. But more than that, I want you to know your worth." Daniel looked at her lovingly. "And how strong your mother is," he added. The camera of life pulled back slowly, the light from the window bathing the family in gold. Outside, the city buzzed as always. But inside that little house, there was calm. Peace, the kind that cannot be bought. The kind that grows only after forgiveness.